Welcome to Lesson 5 in Unit 9, How Seeds Travel. In this lesson, students will work to answer the question, how can we use a model to explain the moving cucumber seed? In this lesson, students collaboratively build a model of an animal dispersing seeds using materials determined by their properties. Students figure out that models can be used to explain seed dispersal. And students make connections to the storyline by explaining their thinking about how the cucumber plant ended up in the radish bed. There are several opportunities for ELA cross-curricular connections throughout the lesson. You can look for specific standard connections in the Unit 9 Teacher Guide. This lesson will take approximately 5 days to complete. To begin the Engage portion, you'll revisit the driving question board and point out any questions students have answered. You'll add any new questions and highlight any others connected to the learning goals of this lesson by calling attention to questions about figuring out how the cucumber seed ended up in the radish bed. You'll record students' ideas for how the cucumber plant moved to the radish bed on the board or a piece of chart paper, and revisit student ideas from earlier in the unit to discuss how their ideas have changed. For the Explore portion, you'll begin by discussing how you could better show how we think the cucumber plant moved, with a model. You'll place students into groups and show them the materials they will use to create a model of an animal dispersing seeds and the Seed Dispersal Model rubric student journal page. You'll tell students that as they decide on the materials they're going to use, they should think about how the properties of the materials are similar to what they are trying to model. You can post and discuss the properties vocabulary card. Students will work with their group to decide on a plan to model one way that an animal disperses seeds. They can choose any seed and any animal, or they can choose a cucumber seed and an animal from around their school. Students will draw their model on the Seed Dispersal Model Brainstorm student journal page. See the tutorial slides for examples. Once students have shown you their drawing of the seed dispersal model they plan to build, you'll provide them with the materials they need to create the model. When they are done building, you'll provide them with the Animal Dispersal Model Presentation student journal page to prepare to share their models. For the Explain portion, you'll invite students to gather in a circle to share their seed dispersal models. You'll use the provided questions to guide your discussion around the question, how can we use a model to explain the moving cucumber seed? The goal for this class discussion is for teams to share their seed dispersal models. For the Elaborate portion, you'll again show students an image of a cucumber seed and ask about its properties and how an animal might move it. You'll have students return to their Model of a Traveling Cucumber student journal page from Lesson 4. They should update their model with any new ideas they have. For the Evaluate portion, you'll invite students to gather in a circle to review what they've learned about how seeds move from one place to another and how properties are important to consider when modeling an animal dispersing seeds. You'll ask them to bring the Model of a Traveling Cucumber student journal page to the discussion. You'll then have students share their models from the Model of a Traveling Cucumber student journal page. Using student ideas, you'll create a class consensus model that explains how the cucumber seed ended up growing in the radish bed. To support student sense-making across the unit, you'll orient students back to the driving question board. You'll ask, did we answer any of the questions on our driving question board? And are there any questions we haven't answered? You'll try to wrap up any final questions on the driving question board before the end of the unit. Refer to the Section 2 performance levels to summatively assess student progress for this section. You can have students use the self-check form to evaluate their own learning in this section. This is an instructional tool that can be used as a metacognitive practice for students to reflect on their learning, express their engagement and excitement levels for the topics they have learned so far. This tool will also allow students to reflect on their science identities and community. By the end of this lesson, students will have developed a model that mimics an animal dispersing seeds. For more information about this unit, visit myscipartners.com.